All right, Matt Mitrione's in studio. How you doing, Matt? I'm Steve. Obviously, you know Kevin. You're going to get in on our last, this is called the opening round. We do 2 minutes, real quick, bang, bang, on topics, and then we'll kind of expand on this fifth one. So start the clock, 2 minutes, Pride rules. We get the 10-minute total. Heavyweight division. There's a good debate going on right now with where these guys in Strikeforce actually rank as compared to some of the guys in the UFC. First of all, for you guys, number 1 and 2, clearly Cain Velasquez and Junior Dos Santos?
In my mind, Cain Velasquez is by far the best heavyweight in the world. Number 2 in the world is Junior Dos Santos. And I think the winner of this tournament probably has a strong argument to be number 3.
You think those guys are the top 2 guys? No doubt?
Honestly, yeah, I would think so. But I would say, I mean, he's proven himself time and time again. I think he looks pretty good. And honestly, I'm a Josh Barnett fan. I mean, I think that he's a really tough dude. I mean, if he can get you down to the ground, I think he'd be in a lot of trouble.
Kevin?
So,
yeah, I like Barnett too. One of the problems I have with Barnett is the fact that he doesn't fight, and he hasn't fought top competition for quite a long time. So does that concern you? If you're going to rate him 3-4 in the world right now, don't you have to see him beat somebody good before you put him in that spot?
Yeah, I agree to that, but also I feel that his accreditations or his accomplishments via catch are so good, and there's not very many really good ground guys in the heavyweight division. So I feel like if he can get somebody to the ground, he can cause them fits, and he can really do a lot of damage.
My other guy left in the field who I think is really underrated, because I don't think people realize what he's like until they're in there with him, and he's a giant, is Antonio Silva. Am I overdoing it based on what he did against Fedor? Am I overrating him?
You and I have gone over this on video. I think yes. I think Silva's a very good heavyweight, but I think you're overrating him a little bit.
I think he can compete with. I think he can compete with Carwin. I think he can compete with Mir. If those are the next guys, look, he's waving me off. Go ahead.
No, I just think that I think that there's a pretty big difference between. I think Carwin's a good guy, but I think Carwin has a lot that he has to learn, especially about his explosiveness now.
So you weren't waving me off on Silva. You were waving me off on Carwin.
No, I wouldn't wave you off on Carwin, but I think that I think gassing is a huge thing to a heavyweight, and I think for it happening for the first time in such a major fight, I think it might play a little bit of mind games with Carwin, and I think it's very serious. Like, gassing is a big damn deal. You get out there, and I heard I was watching it at the Diablo's Cantina, so I didn't get to hear the words what he was saying in the corner, but I heard he said, like, in between the first, he's like, my legs are dead. I think that's just another sign of the adrenaline dump. The adrenaline dump is a bitch, man, and as soon as it sets in, it really plays mind games with you. So I think, like, a couple more fights for him to either get used to it, because it can make or break you. I've seen that happen with a couple people.
Well, here's my take with Carwin, and I think there's a similarity with Bigfoot Silva. Bigfoot is got pretty good power, and he's a huge guy, and he's got great jiu-jitsu, but he's very, very slow. And if you get some of these great athletes that you see in the heavyweight division that are out there right now, I think that change, that's a big change.
But I didn't say that he's beating Junior Dos Santos or Velasquez. I agree with you. I said we're talking Frank Mir and we're talking Shane Carwin, who are the next guys that most people look at in the heavyweight ranks behind the 2 big UFC guys.
Well, even going against Brock, I mean, I think if Brock comes back, Brock is a pretty athletic guy who's got great takedowns, a pretty explosive guy. Brock doesn't have the greatest stand-up in the world,
yep.
and I think guys can take advantage of him. But, I don't see Bigfoot as being that kind of brawler that's going to be able to stand in there, fend off the takedown, and outbox him. That's not his game. And I think, in Brock's case, that if he comes back to be the guy that he looked like he could be, with his health issues we don't know, I think Brock would be able to handle a guy like that.
Well, Bigfoot, I believe neither knocked out or TKO'd Big Cat, Tom Erickson, who's my coach, took him down and defended off several shots from him too. So I mean, I think Bigfoot's legit, bro. I mean, I mean, that's the only thing I know is that the fight with Coach Erickson. That's it.
Yeah.
But I mean, if you can take down Coach Erickson and you can take punches from him straight down the pipe, you're doing something. Lesnar
is the guy that I want to mention because he is the wild card. See, for me, now after watching him get crushed, and I hate doing this because the guy's sick, and but on it, he's gonna come back. I don't think he's gonna be the power guy that he was. He's only he's gonna be smaller at, like, say 250. And I'm starting to connect the dots here where it's like, all right, he got crushed by Velasquez. He doesn't like to get punched. He really got crushed by Carwin. We just saw what happened with Carwin with JDS. I don't know that if he can't get a guy down, I don't know that Brock is even a top 5 heavyweight right now.
Well, I mean, there's certainly, there's some good points you make there, but I think, number one, this whole bit about 250, let's wait and see when he comes back, what he weighs and, what his body fat is, what he's like. Number one, let's see that. Number two, I mean, he's still young in his MMA career. I think, sometimes we're looking at this guy as like he's a Randy Couture, a longtime veteran. He's only been around for a couple of years, and I think, he's had this is the second big time where he's been off, right? So he hasn't had a chance to just keep training, fighting top guys, train. So he hasn't had that development time, in my opinion. If he gets back, and that's an if, and we don't know if he's ever going to, Dana White says he is coming back, that he had part of his colon removed, and he'll be back. But if he gets back, I think he's athletic enough that he can learn the game. He's never going to have a great chin, I don't think, and he doesn't have the great stand-up skills. Like a guy like Matt, I look at Matt, and not because he's standing here, you know what I think of Matt. That's why he's in the studio. But, you have the kind of all-around game that if you develop it, you don't have that one big thing right now that he has, which is wrestling. But I think you have an all-around, emerging all-around game, and that's where Brock is kind of short, isn't he?
I would have to think so. I mean, I couldn't speak factually on it, but I know that it doesn't look like he takes punches well. He shies away from contact. He's strong. He's got big power. Remember what he did to Heath Herring, and Heath Herring's everybody knows he can take a punch. I don't know, but I can tell you that if in the heavyweight division, if you can't take a punch, it's hard to hide that for a while.
For me, that's Kevin. Yeah. That's the deal. It's not a chin. He doesn't want to get hit.
Yeah.
Well, the chin is huge. I mean, how much? Let me ask you this. It'd be interesting to get your take on this. How much do you think that at one point there was an intimidation factor with him that's maybe gone now since other guys have had success with him?
Well, it's like the Mike Tyson thing, right? Or like the Roy Jones Jr. thing. I mean, he had everybody, like people, or even, I mean, I hope this doesn't sound really terrible, but like even the Kimbo Slice thing. Like a lot of people lost to Kimbo because they lost to the atmosphere of Kimbo or the aura of him. Almost like John Jones. I think John Jones is beatable, but I think a lot of people lose to like like Bader. Bader looked really, had a poor showing in there because he probably lost to the hype of John Jones before he even got a chance to fight him. So I think that there's a lot of that around Brock, but I don't know if that really exists anymore.
The heavyweight division for me is great the way it's evolving because about a year ago, and I scoffed at this and I thought it was the dumbest thing ever. People started looking at these guys who weigh 265 and they're like, oh my God, the 230 guys are done. It's like, they're not done. Just like in boxing, if you're skilled as a slightly smaller guy and more athletic, of course you can compete. Well, now it looks like, now the wave is the other way. Now it's like, well, maybe these guys need to trim down. So you're a guy who's kind of in the middle there.
Right.
What was your reaction when people are like, oh, you have to be 265 or you got no shot?
Well, the one thing I think about is Frank Mir, right? Like who put on all kinds of weight in order to bang with Carwin and Brock, and that didn't really do him that much justice, And it's hard for people to learn that or to understand that just because you put on that muscle doesn't mean you know how to use that muscle. I've had this frame. I was 315 pounds. I'm light for me, So like I've had this frame for a long time, but a lot of people haven't had that much weight, or carried that much weight, or you had to bounce around with that much work. So I think I understand. Like I think that I think for a heavyweight, unless you're a naturally really big person, like if you have to lift weights through camp in order to maintain that, or even like supplement to take it, or to get that big, then I would say probably the best thing is to be a smaller heavyweight.
The thing I think about Frank Mir, I think the world of him as a fighter, and I think he's got a lot of good aspects to his game, but it seems to me he's fallen in love with his stand-up, and his bread and butter is his submissions, and it seems like now all of a sudden he wants to become a stand-up fighter.
Well, his stand-up looked pretty damn clean. I mean, he had great-looking elbows, great-looking knees. I mean, he was really working Roy, and granted Roy might have been sick or whatever, but I mean, he got in Roy's ass. I mean, he worked Roy pretty well. So, and coming off the clinch and elbowing off the clinch, I mean, he looked really good. So if you're putting that much time and effort into it, it's kind of like you want to show off your shiny new toy, but his shiny new toy is working pretty well.
Isn't it like, though, if you take it, you put it in baseball, and you're a guy that's, got that 99-mile-an-hour fastball, you learn to throw a changeup. The changeup is a good pitch, but you got where you are because of that 99-mile-an-hour fastball. Don't you have to go back to that at crunch time?
Honestly, I would say that I think Frank has won enough big fights with his stand-up that I feel like he should be comfortable there. And granted, he's a really good jiu-jitsu guy, and even he might not even be the most technical guy, but if he can grab it, he can break it. Even if it's not in the right spot, look at Tim Sylvia. I mean, that armbar wasn't in the right spot, and he still broke his arm. I'm happy to tell you he's going to pull through everything and try to send you to the hospital. He's legit. He's on all aspects.